What an amazing day it has been. Time for another session. And this one talks about a video call a day keeps the doctor away. Now, can the early solution to telehealth challenge lie in the simplest of video call solutions? Can scaling the video call consultation change the way healthcare reaches the nook and the corner of this country? Moderating this event and this conversation, we have Vikram Uppalla, who's the founder for Nephro Plus. Vikram is a seasoned healthcare strategy consultant with over 12 years of global healthcare industry experience. His passion to redefine healthcare delivery in India prompted him to found Nephro Plus. Over to you, Vikram.
Thank you, Gunjan. Srikanth, over to you.
Hi, Vikram. Pleasure having you here. My name is Srikanth Tirumala. I'm CEO, founder of Hooper Labs. And actually, I in fact conceptualized this because I thought the panel is just right to be able to speak about this. And I have with us Hari Talapalli, a multidisciplinary leader with more than 3 decades of experience in the technology and healthcare services space. He is currently CEO of Call Health. And I have Dr. Shekhar, a serial entrepreneur by passion, and also has over 20 years of experience building scaled organizations. He's running a company called Vigo Care, which is giving remote health monitoring also for different kinds of various kinds of patients. So Vikram, really excited to have all of you here. And I think you will make it a great session. Please take it from here and tell us the future of health. I was looking forward to that. I'll probably be in the audience and look forward to hearing from all of you. Thank you.
Sure. Thanks, Srikanth. Okay. Firstly, welcome to all the organizing committee, the fellow panelists and the audience to the TIE Global Summit 2020, this health tech discussion. This particular panel is called that Video Call a Day Keeps the Doctor Away. Very excited to moderate this. I'm the founder and CEO of Nephro Plus. We are India's largest dialysis network. We now also have operations in Philippines, Nepal, and about to start in Uzbekistan. It's a 10-year-old venture with 4 rounds of private equity. We have roughly 250 dialysis centers across 140 centers. Focused pure play network. Would love to have Hari and Shekhar introduce themselves, their companies in just under 1 minute to kick it off this discussion. Over to you, Hari.
Thank you, Vikram. Hi, again, good morning, everyone. Like Vikram said, I run a company called Call Health. I've been on this organization for the last 5 years. Prior to that, for about 30 years, I worked in technology services companies and dealt with different roles within the technology services companies. Call Health, if I can put it in a nutshell, is a 360-degree platform that aims to deliver everything about health on a single platform, whether it is healthcare products or healthcare services, whether it is virtually or at home or at a center. And we service both individual and institutional customers. But we'll talk more about this, Vikram, as we go along. And thanks for that opportunity.
Absolutely.
Back to you.
Absolutely. Over to you, Shekhar, for a very quick introduction of your firm.
Hey, morning, folks. I'm Shekhar Chinnupati, basically a maxillofacial surgeon turned an entrepreneur. I run an organization called Vigo Care. I come from an experience of being a surgeon and then my first company was a technology company, then an healthcare entrepreneur. My previous company was Dentis, which later merged with Glow Dental, and we run India's largest dental chain with about 350 centers. And this is my latest venture, which is into connected care technology. So Vigo Care has been started with a vision of providing connected care platform where we connect doctors and patients. And we don't limit ourselves to anything. It is more about a clinical grade services that can be provided on the platform. I can get into details while we are going into the session.
Sure. Thanks so much, Shekhar. I think if I decode the title for the sake of the audience, a video call a day keeps the doctor away. I think we can decode it into 3 segments. One is telemedicine. The second is remote monitoring. The third is home healthcare. Would love to hear from the fellow panelists, and I'll add my thoughts towards the end of this particular question. telemedicine is not just about a doctor consulting a patient. I mean, we all understand that it's much more beyond that. Remote monitoring is much more beyond just the basic IoT technology monitoring ICU patients, right? Would love to hear from Hari and Shekhar, what do these three segments actually mean in a encompassing way, and not just limited to the layman understanding of just doctor-patient consultation or basic remote monitoring or basic home healthcare. Over to you, Hari, if you can just share your perspective on what do these three segments mean as an opportunity, that would be great.
Yeah, okay. Thanks, Vikram. And I think the way to look at this is, most of the time when we say a video call keeps the doctor away, and when we think about it, I think the first reaction for most of us is the life is about a curative prospect here. And I think the most important point for us to remember is that when we talk about health and when we talk about it in its entirety, we are talking about prevention, wellness, care, and cure. And so therefore, the context of being able to connect with someone who can advise you on what to do to stay fit, to stay well, is not just restricted to a doctor. So I think that's the first message I want to give. And the point around that is as follows. If you look at it, most of our social life, most of our business life has turned virtual, and we have just blended into it in an almost a very natural fashion. Whether it is family that we talk to across different continents, all the business calls that we have, for example, this conference we have, it's as good as sitting across in an auditorium and talking to people, right? Now, when it comes to health, I think the biggest issue that we deal with is, oh my God, somebody has to actually know how I am feeling, how unwell I am or how well I am. And the truth is that two aspects have completely not come in at all. Just a second, please. Later. Sorry, I have my little friend who has walked in. So this is another world that I live in now. So I was just saying that, you don't have to look at connecting with people physically at all in today's context. You look at it this way. We can today let the doctor or your wellness expert know as to how you are feeling and what you're doing around it, right? They can get your ECG, they can get your vitals very easily from wherever they are. And you don't need to be physically there for them to know how you're feeling. I have noticed that as part of Zoom and the whole COVID scenario, people have been doing complete, wellness exercises, at home and wherever they are. So I think the point I'm going to make is that when it comes to video conversations with medical experts, there is no difference between having a physical conversation and as well as a virtual conversation, except of course, if you need an intervention that requires something more. So the primary care, the post-operative care, what I call as a one-to-one consultation is what most of us think. But today, having a family doctor where you can have a one-to-many consultation virtually is very much possible and very much doable. So I think the key message is video consultation is as good as real as it can get. And all you need to worry about is, do you have the connectivity in today's world? That's all I would talk about. But I'm waiting to also hear from Shekhar, because I know Shekhar and I have done an experiment together on remote monitoring of, let us say, an ECG, real-time ECG. And things like that can completely change the way Medicare will come in going forward. So on to you and to
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Over to you, Shekhar. I would love to hear your perspective on what these three segments actually mean to you.
See, if I would categorize it like this, when you talk about healthcare, it's about a preventive primary healthcare. And there is a very reactive secondary, tertiary kind of healthcare. I think technology platforms can do a lot of work in preventive and primary healthcare. So when I say that, It could be just a consultation. Doctor would like to talk, but how better is it than a counseling session? uh, Doctor needs more information from the patient. If it's a only video consultation, it's going to limit the doctor's offering to the patient. Now, how do I get vitals? How do I know what's happening within the patient? If I start understanding what's happening with the patient, now I have a lot of data. Now, the second problem when I have a lot of data is who is going to look at the data? Who is going to make a meaningful sense of the data? As such, healthcare in India, at least, is suffering with a lot of dearth of a lot of doctors. Doctor population ratios are not matching as compared to the rest of the world. So if you're throwing a lot of data to the doctors, they're not able to consume the data. So now if we make meaningful sense out of the data and then give it to the doctors, that is when a lot of healthcare ecosystem will actually get enabled to provide services remotely. And that is what is telehealth, what I think. And then telehealth doesn't necessarily be only a remote connectivity to an urban to suburban connectivity, right? It can be within the city, within the hospital itself. A doctor doesn't need to move to multiple rooms, keep spending time on things which are not very important for him. So these platforms should be able to connect everyone together. So there is an efficient use of time. There is more meaningful information. And I'll give you an example. In times of COVID, right? If I'm only doing a video consultation, I have to go with the perspective of what patient tells me. And I don't have confidence to write a prescription or advise a treatment to the patient. Versus, I have all the data of vitals like respiratory rate, ECG, SpO2, all the vitals coming in. And it is not about vital streaming. If I have insights from that vitals, then my conviction towards my recommendation to the patient is very, very high. So we have to look at it from a very 360-degree point of view and cover all the aspects of the patient coming remotely using technology. And that's when I think telemedicine will actually make a lot of meaningful sense for both doctors and the customers. And to me, the way I look at it is video consultation is more of a communication channel between the doctor and the patient, and which is absolutely very important. So that's how I would look at it, Vikram.
Got it. No, it's good to hear both Hari's and your perspective, Shekhar. From my perspective, I think the whole telemedicine, as Hari rightly said, it's beyond just a doctor-patient call. For example, we at NephroPlus have been using for the last few years a centralized dietitian team who remotely connect with patients spread across all over the country, right? Now overseas as well. And the recently, due to COVID crisis, when home healthcare, the third segment that we talked about, has spiked up, we have the home hemodialysis market for us, the business for us has tripled during the COVID crisis because affluent patients want to get care in their own home, right? So our center nursing team does remote consultation with the home hemodialysis patient. And recently, when we launched our NephroPlus 2.0 app, which is supposed to be communication between the doctor and the patients, between the nurses and the patients and the patients. So there is this whole engagement between various stakeholders in the ecosystem. I think there are infinite possibilities, and I believe that it should not be limited, as Hari said, just to a doctor, to a patient telemedicine, right? Remote monitoring, according to me, it just opens up a whole lot of clinical opportunities. And there is one question from the audience about what is the prospect of an eICU. We keep hearing about multiple hospitals creating a lot of buzz around eICU, but would love to get your thoughts on that. Hari, if you want to take a crack at that, or Shekhar.
So I think 2-3 points on this, Vikram. I think just to put things in perspective, like you said, We do 100,000 students in the tribal locations. We handle their entire health checkup and their real-time monitoring through the year. And this is done through training the local, health workers on the ground to be able to triage a doctor who is sitting in a remote location like Hyderabad, for them. And we have been able to kind of give them first level of support and care. And believe me, calls come in the middle of the night, calls come in during the day. And this is something that we have been able to do and address in terms of whether this can be treated at home or they need to go to the nearest PHC. During this COVID case, in the last 4 months, we must have serviced about 100,000 patients, where we provided remote monitoring while they were home quarantined or home isolated. And we could do both nurse conversations and doctor conversations. We could enable medical supplies and essential supplies. We helped them in bio-waste disposal wherever they had those challenges and stuff like this. And we are talking about 100,000 patients that we have dealt with across places in Karnataka, Punjab, Surat, and so on. Now, that's the other part of it. I know that, and there was a question around EICU, and I can tell you that there are innumerable cases where people reach out to us for what we call as palliative or end-of-life care, where the ICU in the hospital says, I believe we have a challenge, and you can probably just take care of them, pain management, and there is really no medication and real-time management. Now, there are dozens of organizations today who are providing an intensivist 24/7 from a remote location and are helping run ICUs in small towns and villages. So are these possible? The answer is a definitive yes. I mean, are there challenges around it in some instances? Of course, the answer is yes. But compared to what we thought we were doing or we could do, the last 8 months has told us that you can do a dramatically larger number of things than you ever thought about. So I think the opportunity is very, very large. And everybody
in that, sorry.
Yeah.
So in the same lines, we also had a lot of experience during these COVID times. Doctors were not going to the clinics. Patients weren't able to come to the doctors. Hospitals are overburdened. Every doctor were admitting patients under them while patients were at home. And we are connecting them. We connected hundreds of such kinds of patients with the doctors. And then doctors were able to offer a hospital kind of an experience to the patients because, one, all vitals are streaming. Number two, they don't need to keep looking at it because insights are going. And number three, there is a video consultation. And in a video consultation, the son or the other family member is outside the house or outside the country. And they also form part of it. It's a one-to-many kind of situations. Really, really helped. At the same time, to answer the question of EICUs, in healthcare, it's about high acuity, medium acuity, and low acuity monitoring, right? Are we in a position to answer high acuity monitoring? My answer is not yet. Can we? Yes, for sure. Because the response time has to be very quick. It has to be 1 minute, few seconds should be the response time. When you bring things remotely, that the technology can jeopardize that response time. And to me, the way I look at it is ICU monitoring is not yet a lot of problem for many hospitals because they have one-to-one nurse, right? So things are right in front. And in ICU, it is not just the vitals. You need to have a larger perspective. So I think our technology is still not yet there. And my sense is the moment we solve the low acuity and medium acuity monitoring, these companies which are solving this will slowly graduate up into high acuity monitoring is what I would think.
Interesting, Shekhar. I have a slightly nuanced or a different perspective here. I think from a technology perspective, we seem to be almost there. Maybe it's not perfect, but I think we are just at the fringes. And as you know, disruptive innovation happens when things are in fringes, right? And I think there is a lot to do on the business model side of how do you make it work in terms of how do you make it a win-win collaboration between a hospital as well as an EICU company, right? And I think it's more to do with business model innovation. How do you engage the intensivists? How do you engage the hospitals in a win-win relationship? But I think this is just I totally see it coming in the next few years. Technology, of course, a little bit more should be improved, will be improved. But I think there is enough technology in there to be dangerous on this. That's just my perspective. Stepping back, Hari and Shekhar, if you can articulate how your company is taking advantage of these three segments: the telemedicine, the remote monitoring, the home healthcare. What are the specific few activities? Couple of sort of the 80-20 Pareto principle based few activities which are making disproportionate impact. That would be interesting for the audience to hear. In these three segments, what are the couple of initiatives that your firm is undertaking?
So, Shekhar, I'll take that and
Sure.
just give a perspective. One of the important points, Vikram, that's coming up is, see, insurance today in this country currently covers mostly inpatient and OT related issues. What we call as IP and OT care is what they cover. Most insurance products do not cover OPD or pure OPD, right? And even if they have, there are lots of restrictions around which you can get an OPD care. But the good news is they are starting to change. I think thanks to COVID and thanks to what we experienced in the last few months, I am seeing multiple insurance companies are configuring products for OPD. Now, here is another interesting insight into that. Till now, when you were taking an insurance product, if the value was at a certain price and above, they wanted necessarily a lot of blood work, and in some instances, depending on your current health condition, some kind of a TMT and so on and so forth. A lot of that is now starting to change into what we call as video MERs and tele MERs. Things that you thought you had to go and actually do a blood work starts getting done at home. Things that you thought you will need to do a TMT. For example, we do digital auscultations where somebody is taking a digital stethoscope and checking on somebody in Kurnool, and that heart sounds are being heard by the doctor real time sitting in Hyderabad, and murmurs or otherwise are recorded and available to refer to later. Stuff like this means that a lot of things that we were otherwise thinking we need to go out and get done are changing, right? Some of us know that they even come home to get basic x-rays done, not the complex ones.
Yeah.
Now, I'm just trying to say that it enables the doctor to be equipped to take a decision if some of these things can be moved out. And virtually, as far as the doctor is concerned, he or she gets a chance to take the decisions based on validated, authentic data. I am told by insurance companies that because of our level of digital capability that Call Health brings, the discovery rate, as they call it, of people who take an insurance and who sometimes disclose or don't disclose their current health illnesses, it has improved by 50% for them because of the digital technologies that we use. Right now, what I'm trying to say is your clinical precision is getting better, your convenience to the customer is getting better, and most importantly, the doctor is able to optimize his or her time far better to deal with more patients in the same time, right? So I think there's a lot of stuff that's coming our way.
Absolutely, absolutely, Hari. I cannot agree anything more than what Hari said. I'll give you some examples. Fundamentally, I don't think telehealth, remote patient monitoring, and all these three segments are together. We cannot, separate them. Actually, is what I think. I'll give you an example. A patient ECG, long-term ECG monitoring. People who has got arrhythmias or rhythm disturbances or a vague complaint of dizziness. When they go to the doctor, doctor is not able to spend a lot of time because it takes too much of time investigating, and complex Holter equipment and all those things have to be put to the patient. We have a very simple ECG monitoring solution powered by AI, which is a simple patch, very consumer-centric patch, but clinical grade. We have done a study on 100 patients in Hyderabad with some of the cardiologists. We noticed that 16% of those patients did not have active symptoms, but they had some arrhythmia disturbance which needed attention, right? So, and this pretty much happens remotely without taking away doctor's time, right? Definitely such, and this is an evidence-based diagnosis. It is bringing so much of precision into diagnosis. Now, insurance company is so comfortable with this kind of a diagnosis. Doctor feels so comfortable with this kind of a diagnosis. Patient feels that he has been diagnosed so early, and that too with a lot of evidence put in front of him. So a lot of possibilities like this will open up. Early interventions will open up, and thereby with this kind of a technology, the physical infrastructures will limit themselves to doing procedures, where a lot of direct interventions are needed. Rest everything can move on to these platforms, and then that's where I think that's probably the scope of telehealth.
Got it. Got it. No, very good to hear. I got a question over an email last night. This was more around what are the opportunities for Indian health tech healthcare companies looking from a global perspective due to this telehealth, remote monitoring, home healthcare opportunities, probably more to do with telehealth and remote monitoring. And when I thought about it was more like, okay, first there was a IT outsourcing wave, then there is a BPO outsourcing wave, then legal also outsourcing, radiology outsourcing, reading of reports. With remote monitoring, with telehealth, are there opportunities for Indian startups, Indian companies to serve beyond India? That's the question. Hari, you can take a crack, and then Shekhar should take a crack at it.
Yeah.
So
Go ahead.
We've been getting a few conversations on that, Vikram. We have had some conversations from organizations overseas. However, do recognize that because it is health and because it is health data, there is bound to be a significant level of regulatory constraints around which you can do. For example, is a doctor from here authorized to do any kind of advice to anyone outside? And so on. So there are obviously a lot of constraints. Also, who gets to see what kind of healthcare data and for how long? So I think there are still lots of constraints within which this conversation is starting to happen. Some of the basic low-end things like, for example, medical transcription services, you have heard them and they've been happening forever, right? People have been doing medical transcription forever.
Yes.
The people have been dealing with radiology reports being read and recommendations being given, which is being confirmed by a local doctor. So we have started seeing some of those. Remote monitoring instance, for example, at one stage, there was a conversation saying, can we actually set up an India center and do it from there? But we realized there are too many complications to deal with, at least for the US market that we were talking to. So my answer is yes, you will start seeing some of the, like what Shekhar said, the lower end activities or the lower complexity activities that will be moved down. But I believe a lot of the medium and high intensity ones will stay locally there. But Shekhar?
Got it.
I think so. I think so, Hari. I also see some increased traction in the last few months in overseas, but healthcare is a highly regulated market. Can our technology go and serve someone sitting in Indonesia or Africa or US? Yes, of course it can. But the point is, we are regulated by the law of the land, right? So those are the barriers, and I see. And one of the biggest advantage a country like India we all have is there's a huge patient population. The amount of insight that we can derive from our patient is huge. For example, we have done lakhs of hours of ECG monitoring till now. There's so much of experience that comes out of it. There's so much of AI that can build. And India is comparatively a less regulated market. So if we start focusing on technology in India, the technology is maturing by itself. And whichever countries opens up on their regulatories, we can just go and start serving those countries. So the incremental add-on that you need to do is more at an operational level than a core solution level. So I'll give you an example without naming the patient. Recently, one of the royal families in Indonesia, they approached us for some long-term ECG analysis, and we proudly have discovered discovered certain ailments which their local systems couldn't actually bring out. So the point is, how does it matter? A human being is a human being, right? So there are a lot of opportunities, and I think healthcare technology has got within India has got a lot more future for the reasons that I told, that comparatively less regulated market, more access to patient data. And then we can get data directly from the patient, which is like the most clean data without depending on, secondary and third level data sources, right? So that's what I would think. We are in the best place for becoming future global leaders in providing healthcare technology.
Got it. No, that I agree with you, Shekhar. I think for the emerging entrepreneurs in this ecosystem, it's probably a very good idea to focus on serving the massive population burden, the disease burden in India, and get the overall architecture figured out, get the process figured out, and then as interesting opportunities open up from a regulatory constraint that Hari talked about, I think we should just be live and kicking to take advantage of such opportunities. But I think based on my travel around, from a global perspective, I think various health systems are seeing this pressure building up, Shekhar and Hari, which is, hey, our health systems are too bloated, are too inefficient. We are spending way too much money on a per capita basis, right? And oil price is no longer $100 per barrel. It's hovering around 40, between 40 and 50. So the Middle East is, when I go to Bahrain, Saudi, the Middle East is suddenly looking at cost optimization, which they have never looked at it in the last 30, 40 years, right? So I think while the regulatory challenges are there, if we can look at India as an opportunity to serve at some scale, then a lot of opportunities overseas as well will open up. That's just my view. I think we have another 5 minutes only. Hari and Shekhar, would love for you guys to tell the audience, whoever is listening to this panel discussion, if they were looking at entering a healthcare ecosystem and they want to do a startup right now, what could be some of the interesting problems that, based on your extensive healthcare experience, industry experience, what are the things that they should explore and deep dive and figure it out themselves whether they should do a startup or not?
Okay, so 2-3 points I would say. Like Shekhar said, India is probably the biggest test bed you will find when it comes to healthcare. Billion plus people, regulatory guidelines are still quite nascent. But the good news is the NDHM is, in my opinion, one of the greatest initiatives that this country would have seen, and probably one of the most powerful initiatives if it gets done the way it is being envisaged. So what I would like all of us here to recognize is that India is starting to build a health infrastructure which is going to be very, very different. It is going to have a teleconsultation module, a consent manager, a doctor registry, and so on and so forth. So my suggestion to people who are looking at entering the healthcare space would be, don't look at doing some of the things that are already going to be defined as a highway. So please don't go build a highway. Look at how you can create pockets of excellence around that, like what Shekhar was mentioning. How do you get millions of data points to be able to provide deeper insights to someone about how their HbA1c reading is compared to people from Andhra Pradesh in the 40s age group, and so on and so forth. So get to that level of articulation and areas rather than saying, I'm creating a medicine delivery startup or a teleconsultation startup. My view is that that is overcrowded and flooded, and you won't probably make money in those areas. But if you are able to bring technology to give greater insights and greater meaning and decision making to the providers or to the patients, I think we have a great opportunity, or to the payers for that matter. We have a great opportunity. But Shekhar.
India,
this is the best time for healthcare technology companies. And I would encourage entrepreneurs to start focusing here. When you're focusing, don't do things which are very general, which a lot of people can do. When we do a healthcare infrastructure, we definitely need to look at the doctor. Anything which is going to be a decision support tool to the doctor, anything which is going to increase the efficiency of a doctor, make the doctor's life easier, make it more profitable, it has to help. While saying that, which means it has to be absolutely clinical grade. On the other side, healthcare is undergoing a lot of consumerization. Whatever solutions that we develop, we need to have consumer in mind. If we have to have both doctor and consumer in mind while developing a healthcare solution, the entire thing becomes complex because these are two sides of the spectrum. But if we are able to crack that, being a very consumer-focused solution, yet remain clinical grade and helpful to the doctors, those are the solutions that will have a lot of traction, number one. And number two is healthcare is so vast. We should not try to do everything in healthcare. Pick up one focused topic and go so deep into it. Do a lot of clinical trials, a lot of patient studies. And that should be a strong parallel activity while we are doing revenues and customers on one side. So that's so someone has to get into healthcare with this kind of thoughts, and they have to be here for a long haul. Healthcare just doesn't happen overnight. So they have to be having a lot of patience. And, I don't see a reason why, India will not be the future global hub for healthcare, both physical and technology-wise.
Got it. Thanks, Shekhar. I think from my perspective, I think it's a golden window of opportunity right now for entrepreneurs to look into healthcare startups. There is a once in a lifetime event that has happened in the last 9 months, which is doctors have finally come to accept remote consultations. The patients have come to accept remote consultations, or you can say accepting technology as a solution. So it's a once in a lifetime event that has happened. And the entrepreneurs are always smart. They'll take advantage of this once in a lifetime opportunity. I think there is an opportunity in terms of figuring out affordable primary care. And again, in primary care, the technology is quite available. The business model innovation is the key. How do you incentivize the doctors? How do you make it attractive for the patients to get in? There is another opportunity, which I think is NCD disease management, non-communicable disease management for the payers. The payers want, be it the government, be it the private insurance firms, they would want the NCD burden to be better managed, and technology opens up these opportunities so entrepreneurs can look at that. And even remote monitoring of aged parents by sons or daughters overseas, remote monitoring of ICUs that we talked about. So many, I think the data, the technology is just building up. If someone can, as Shekhar said, take the data, but also offer a wrapper, the insights package around it, and make it actionable, I think that could be a tremendous opportunity. I think we have come to the end of the panel discussion. If I can quickly summarize for the benefit of the audience, at the beginning, we talked about how it's not just curative care, but it's prevention, it's wellness, it's curative care. All the things are encompassing in this emerging opportunity. We talked about how telemedicine, remote monitoring, home healthcare are all interrelated. And if somebody can integrate these three things or have an interplay among these three things, it could be a multiplier factor. We talked about how it's not just data, but analytics and insights wrapper around it could be much more powerful for entrepreneurs. We talked about how India can be a base, and once proven at massive scale, massive data scale, then interesting international opportunities can emerge up. Hari talked about the emerging framework around NDHM, how we don't need to reinvent the wheel, but be smart around how to take advantage of this highway and build business opportunities around it. And we finally talked about how This is a very exciting time for wannabe entrepreneurs in the healthcare ecosystem. Business model innovation is the key. So having said that, great insights from Hari. Thank you, Hari. Great insights from Shekhar. Thank you, Shekhar. Thanks to the organizing committee and all the audience to dial into this session. Over to the organizer, please.
Thank you, Vikram.
Thank you, Vikram.
Thank you, Shekhar.
Thank you.